Hello everyone, welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfic. This will be the continuation of Hidden Messages. This will be Part 3, Chapter 3, entitled Friendship. Class 1A was tense as the bell rang to start the morning. They had left the class the day before loudly complaining about the difficulties of the assignment they'd been given. Throughout the rest of the afternoon and evening, their complaints changed from moaning about the difficulty of the assignments to laments about how it will tank their grades. Only a few students were not worried about how badly their grades were about to drop. Katsuki and Izuku, both being of that number, only joined by Ida and Todoroki. Izuku watched as his classmates sat anxiously while Aizawa made his way to the podium. Izuku smiled as he heard a familiar soft click, indicating him to pay attention to what Katsuki was going to say. "How many of these idiots do you think failed?" "Kachan, I'm not going to bet on our friends' grades. Besides, they all passed." "Maybe." "Oh, come on, there's no fucking way they all passed." "I'll be giving back your grades from the assignment yesterday, but I first want to explain something. I'm sure that many of you are worried about your grades, but you'll have a chance to make it up. Yesterday morning I mentioned that this was just the first iteration of the assignment. The next iteration will be next week." Aizawa stood at the front of the class, looking at each student as he spoke. "Hear that? We get to do this again!" Izuku could barely contain his excitement. "You better not make us fucking switch partners." "That assignment will be nearly identical to this one. However, instead of grading you separately for each assignment, your grade for both will be replaced by the higher of the two. In other words, if you failed this time, you can learn from it and do better next week to save your grade." Izuku noticed that Aizawa's gaze stopped on certain classmates that had complained the most after the assignment. Izuku heard Katsuki hold in a snort and then start talking. "Damn, you can feel all these fuckers relax. Maybe if they actually had tried the first time, they wouldn't be so fucking tense." "Kachan, they did try. They just don't have the experience that we do." "Just like yesterday's assignment, you'll not be getting your prompts until the class period starts. Unlike yesterday, though, you will have more time to prepare. You can decide whether you want to switch your partner or keep the same one, but you have to turn in a paper with who your partner is by Friday afternoon." "Fuck yeah!" "So are we going to be partners again?" "No fucking shit, nerd." "The assignment will take place sometime next week. The day will not be announced in advance. You'll have all weekend to prepare, so that should be no issue for you." Aizawa kept talking, but the class had all started to shuffle as they got excited about the assignment again. A few students who had felt good about how they did were already making eye contact with their partners, planning to work together again. Now, a few more quick notes before I hand back the quizzes. Far too many of you did poorly on the actual quiz part of the assignment. This is an important lecture, so I'll be giving it again in Foundational Heroics today. If you got above a 75 on the quiz, you'll be given the option to either stay for the lecture or attend a practical lesson with All Might. If you got lower than a 75, you do not have a choice. You will be attending the lecture. Fuck yeah, I'm not going to stay and listen to that damn lecture again. "Kachan, we haven't got our grades back. You don't know if you did well enough on the quiz to avoid it." "That damn quiz was easy as fuck if you just paid attention. If I didn't get a perfect score, it's fucking rigged." "I guess you're right. It was pretty easy." "I also want to point out that while it is ultimately your choice on whether or not you share your grades or not, giving your classmates too much information could potentially make it easier for them to figure out your messages next time. With that being said, you have the rest of the class period to look over your scores." Izuku and Katsuki didn't let Aizawa handing out their quizzes stop their conversation. "I bet most of these idiots will immediately share their fucking scores with anyone that's going to listen." "I want to disagree, but you're probably right. Even Ida and Todoroki let it slip yesterday that they were using Morse code." Before Katsuki could answer, Izuku took a moment to look at his quiz. Only two things were written on it, his score and... "Come see me after school." "Kachan, does your quiz say that too?" "Yeah, nerd. It's probably about your damn message. You did decide to make a fucking message about his personal life." "Right. Yeah. Oh my god, he probably hates me. I didn't even think about how he'd react to it. If I was right, he probably didn't want anyone to know, and I just ruined that. If I was wrong, oh god, that's so embarrassing. I practically just told our teacher that I ship him with Present Mike. Kachan, why would you let me do this?" "Nerd, chill. We didn't have a lot of time for you to think of anything else, and I doubt he cares that much anyway. He's probably just going to tell us not to spread any fucking rumors." "Right. Yeah, that's it." As much as he tried to be, Izuku was not convinced. He spent the rest of the day worried about what Aizawa would want to see him about. He was so worried that he couldn't bring himself to enjoy the practical lesson that All Might set up. It was pretty much a game of tag, except they were allowed to use their quirks. He could tell that Katsuki was getting worried about him, especially after he'd managed to get tagged the most, but he knew Katsuki wouldn't understand. Katsuki has never been an anxious person, but Izuku has enough anxiety for the both of them. Finally, the day ended, and Izuku practically ran to the teacher's lounge. Took a bit for Katsuki to join him, but when he did, they both knocked. Aizawa opened the door and let them in. Surprisingly, there were no other teachers around. Aizawa led them both to his desk and gestured for them to sit at the chairs next to each other, across from Aizawa. After a moment of silence that caused Izuku's anxiety to skyrocket, Aizawa finally spoke. "Do either of you have any idea why I asked you to meet me?" Katsuki stayed silent, but Izuku couldn't stop the rush of words coming out of his mouth. "Is it to do with my message? I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking when I said it. I looked around and I saw you grab your ring and we were running out of time." Izuku was cut off by Katsuki elbowing him in the side. "Sorry." "That was part of the reason, but first, do either of you have some sort of telepathy quirk that you didn't disclose?" Izuku startled. "What? The fuck?" Katsuki looked like he had a hint of surprise in his ever-present glare. Rather than responding, Aizawa simply raised his eyebrow. "No, neither of us have telepathy quirks. You know our quirks. You've seen us use our quirks." Izuku was confused that anyone could think that either of them were telepathic this far into the year. "If I had a telepathy quirk, I wouldn't hold myself back from using it till halfway through my first year. I would use that shit as often as possible." "Good, that's what I thought, but I needed confirmation after you both got the highest score ever received on the assignment from yesterday." Aizawa looked between the two of them, obviously expecting some sort of reaction. "The highest score? Kanchan, we got the highest score ever!" Izuku expressed after he made sure to click for Katsuki's attention. He was so used to hiding it that he didn't even react in any way that anyone other than Katsuki would know. "I fucking heard him, Deku. I don't need you repeating it." Aizawa squinted at the two boys, obviously thrown off by their lack of reaction. "Now, for the other reason I wanted to speak with you. It's about your message. You were correct. President Mike and I have been married for 7 years, but I ask that you do not share that with anyone. Until yesterday, not even all of the teachers were aware of our relationship, and we'd prefer if it were as few people as possible that know. Later on, we will have a lesson going in depth about relationships as heroes and how it can be dangerous, but for now, just know that this information being public knowledge could put a target on either of our backs." Izuku barely let him finish before he started talking. "Of course, we won't tell anyone. I actually chose to observe you because I figured that it wouldn't be as big of a breach of privacy if I told you something about you rather than something about my classmates. Didn't even think about the fact that me knowing would be a breach of privacy, but really I'd suspected for months that you were married to President Mike, so while I did observe you grab your ring, which is what led me to that conclusion, it wasn't exactly news. You grab your ring a lot, especially when someone brings up the USJ or when President Mike smiles at you. Didn't even really think about telling Kanchan being a breach of your privacy either, because I know that if he ever took more than 2 seconds to think about it, he would have come to the same conclusion. He's just as observant as I am, if he wants to be. He just doesn't take that time to really pay attention to other people that much. I mean, we really have different philosophies on how to become a great hero. I believe in becoming a hero that is made from what I can learn from others' influence, while he believes in becoming his own hero without the influence of others. I really admire that, though, but—" Izuku stopped, because of a hard elbow to his ribs. "We won't tell anyone," Katsuki summarized to Aizawa, who looked unimpressed by the mutter spiral Izuku went on. "Thank you." Izuku looked over at Katsuki sheepishly. He had asked him years ago to stop him whenever he got on one of his mutter spirals. They play it off as if Katsuki gets annoyed, but honestly, Katsuki doesn't actually mind that much. Really, Izuku just doesn't like it when he reveals more information than he means to. After that, Aizawa wrapped up the meeting and sent them both on their way, but before they left, Katsuki and Izuku made sure to turn in their papers indicating that they would be partners again. Although they left together, Izuku walked back alone. Katsuki had decided to get a quick workout in at the gym before this evening crowd had started to arrive. Izuku was expecting chaos similar to the day before when they had chosen partners, so he was surprised to find silence as he entered the dorm. As he walked to his room, he didn't see a single person. However, as he passed people's bedrooms, he did hear conversations inside. It seems that everyone had found their partners and were already trying to figure out how to best complete the assignment. He was a little disappointed that he wouldn't find anyone to hang out with this evening, and most likely for the rest of the week as well on the weekend. But he was proud that his classmates were taking the assignment seriously. Over the next few days, it seemed that their lives were revolving around it. Izuku couldn't go half an hour without being reminded of the assignment in some way. He regularly found papers scattered throughout the common areas with Morse code written on them. People were coughing weirdly all the time, or making weird faces. It wasn't uncommon to look across the room and see someone absolutely butchering sign language, but he couldn't say for sure that wasn't their intention. After all, the language he created with Katsuki originally included butchered forms of sign language and Morse code. Overall, it was obvious that his class had taken the assignment and gone plus ultra. and he couldn't be more proud. From what he could see of Class B, they weren't given the second version of the assignment, or they didn't feel the need to practice as much. By Friday, Izuku was starting to feel a little lonely. He had sparred with Katsuki a few times throughout the week, and they had a quick quirk practice session with All Might, but outside of that, they really didn't hang out. The rest of his friends were very preoccupied with the assignment. From what little they had all talked since the assignment, he had found out that Sue and Uraraka hadn't done too well. While Ida and Todoroki did do pretty well, they thought that they missed the essence of the assignment. Based on who he saw them with, it was seeming like Uraraka and Sue had switched partners, but either way, they weren't hanging out with them. Friday afternoon, he found himself bored, so he decided to say hi to his sister class, unlike his class, who liked to keep their plans as unpredictable as possible, both because they prefer spontaneity and because they were attacked by villains a bit too often to be comfortable. Class B has a weekly picnic hangout. They weren't hard to find. 20 teenagers being loud rarely is hard to find, but he still took his time heading over to them. He really did want to be friends with them. He thought the rivalry between the two classes was dumb, and they are going to be coworkers in a few years, so it makes more sense for them to get along. However, he still was a bit scared about trying to make friends. So far, it being UA was different, but he always had the fear in the back of his mind that he could go back to the loser he was at Aldera in the blink of an eye. He knew that he could never lose Katsuki as a friend. Remaining friends even after the rocky past year had proven that, but he wasn't sure he could handle being the outcast again. Walking up to Class B, he was nervous, and the way the stares from everyone there did not help. But Izuku knew that if he ever wanted to be on good terms with the class, he needed to start somewhere, so why not here? "Hi," Izuku waved. "I know our classes aren't the best of friends, but I was hoping that we could get along better, so I figured I might as well stop by and say hello." Izuku started regretting his decision as soon as the words left his mouth. Every single one of them just stared at him, expressionless. Right before he could tuck tail and run, a voice spoke up. "What? Do you think you're better than us? You have to come over here and try to make nice? You probably think that you're so great. Oh, this class is having fun, so I have to come insert myself so they know that I'm morally superior." Monoma rose from where he was sitting under a tree. "What? No!" Izuku waved his hands in front of him frantically. "It's not like that. All my classmates are busy preparing for the second iteration of the secretive communication assignment, so I figured now was a good time to try and be friends with you. I thought you all were really cool, so I hoped we could be friends at camp, but, really, it's not like that at all." "So, you only came over here because the superior Class A was busy?" Monoma glared as he walked towards Izuku. "You were probably trying to brag to us, too? Going on about how the rest of your class needed to study, but you didn't. Trying to make you sound all great, not needing to study for an assignment that the rest of your classes spend all their time preparing for. Well, we aren't studying either, and most of us probably did better than you anyway. After all, your flashy quirk doesn't help you with everything." Kendo had her hand raised to karate chop Monoma on the neck when a different voice spoke up. "Nerd, what the fuck are you doing with these losers?" Izuku wasn't sure if Katsuki joining the conversation was a good thing, but at least it meant that he had backup if they decided to attack him. "Of course, here comes another superior Class A student, probably also wanting to show off that he's so smart, also not studying." Monoma taunted, but Katsuki's eyes didn't leave Izuku, obviously prompting him for the answer, either out loud or silently. "I was trying to make friends with Class B, but they think that I'm just trying to prove that I'm better than them. I'm not, and I'm well aware of it, but they're convinced. How could anyone think that I'm arrogant? I literally had so little control of my quirk that I was breaking my bones for months. How—" Izuku trailed off as he noticed wide eyes surrounding him. Apparently he was speaking out loud to everyone instead of just silently to Katsuki. Katsuki scoffed. "This idiot does shit like that, and you think that he's arrogant? The fuck are you thinking? And Deku, what do you think you're doing? Putting yourself down like that? We just got the highest fucking score on that damn assignment. Ever. Have some fucking self-confidence, will you? Now let's go. I don't want to deal with these fucking extras." Katsuki turned and stomped away, but he didn't make it far before realizing that Izuku wasn't following him. Sighing, he turned around and grabbed Izuku's arm, dragging the embarrassed boy along with him. Vaguely, Izuku could hear the exclamations as they marched away. Did Bakugo just defend Midoriya? Wait, he said they got the highest score ever. They managed to work together? I thought they hated each other. After they got away from Class B, Katsuki finally let go of Izuku as they walked side by side without talking. Finally, Izuku couldn't hold it in any longer. "Thanks, Kachan." "What, you can speak out loud in front of all those extras, but now when we're alone—" Ugh, shitty nerd. Should have just left you back there. "No, it's just, I'm not used to actually speaking out loud to you." They kept walking towards the less populated parts of campus as they talked, avoiding anyone that might overhear. Nerd, we talk all the damn time. Not out loud. We talk out loud every damn day, maybe not as often as we talk silent, but we still talk often. Katsuki kicked a rock in front of them on the path. Well, maybe, but not honestly. What, you been lying to me, Deku? Izuku immediately felt guilty at how disappointed Katsuki sounded, because behind his usual anger. Katsuki kicked the rock again, only for it to bounce off the path. No, Kachan, I mean, we don't talk the same out loud as we do silent. Out loud, we're always fighting. We don't ever hang out, and we never have real conversations. We're enemies or rivals or whatever publicly, but silently we're best friends, or at least I think we are. We're hanging out right now, nerd. Is that not good enough? This is hanging out? You kidnapped me from Class B, and now we're fighting? Ugh, fine. Do you want to hang out, or would you like me to bring you back to the assholes you were with a second ago? An evil grin stretched across Katsuki's face. I'm sure they'd just love to have you back now that they know that we got the highest scores ever on that damn assignment. Oh God, please don't take me back there. Wait, you actually want to hang out with me? Izuku was a little embarrassed when Katsuki just stared at him incredulously for a moment. Of course I want to hang out with you, nerd. Why the fuck else would I drag you away from those losers and start just wandering? You said yourself that we're best friends silently. Can we not be fucking friends out loud? No, we can. I just didn't think you'd want to be. Izuku kept walking, but he was pulled back to face Katsuki, who had stopped. I don't know how to get this into your damn dumbass brain that you have, but we've been friends all of our lives. And that isn't fucking changing anytime soon. You have a quirk now, so no one's going to give us any shit. We don't have to hide our goddamn friendship anymore. I want to hang out with you. Talking in class and all is great, but we can actually be friends now. But you have other friends now. Kirishima, Sero, Kaminari, Mina. You don't need to be friends with me. I don't need to be friends with fucking anyone. I want to be fucking friends with you and those other dumbasses. Wow, Katsuki Bakugo actually admitting that he wanted to be friends. I should have gotten that on camera, Izuku choked, wanting to end the conversation. Fuck off, shitty nerd. Katsuki pushed Izuku lightly, trying to hide his laughter. God, John, that was mean. Izuku pushed him back before running a few feet away. Deku, get back here! Katsuki chased after him for a while, until he finally caught up to him under a tree. As soon as he was within reach, Izuku was shoved just hard enough that he fell over. And soon he hit the ground. Katsuki flopped over onto the ground next to him. What the fuck, nerd? Katsuki was breathing a little harder than usual. What? You wanted to hang out, so we're hanging out. Izuku feigned ignorance, while he was also slightly out of breath. Unable to help it, Izuku burst out laughing, and a second later, Katsuki joined him. Throughout the weekend, Izuku and Katsuki hung out a lot, yet because their classmates were preoccupied, none of them noticed that it wasn't for the assignment. They had figured out that they were partners. The process of elimination made that easy, but they thought that they were hanging out just to work on that. That was the only reason anyone else was spending time with anyone after all. The only day that Izuku even saw anyone other than Katsuki was Saturday, when Katsuki and Todoroki went to their provisional license class. During that time, Izuku hung out with Ida, and they continued to hang out into the evening when Todoroki had gone to have dinner with family. The class studied so much that by Monday morning they felt like they were ready. Throughout the school day, it was possible to feel like there was tension in the air, but when they got to foundational heroics, they were greeted by All Might and told to go out and work on their super moves. Tuesday went similarly, and Wednesday and Thursday. When Thursday passed without an assignment, the class went into overdrive preparing, making dinner Thursday night very amusing. They had deemed it as a no-stakes practice for Friday, but because it was a no-stakes, not everyone took it seriously. It was silent, other than the chorus of clicks and taps that some people were using, but before long the room was filled with the sounds of 20 teenagers trying very hard not to laugh. Kaminari had decided that rather than communicate with his partner, he was going to communicate with everyone. This meant that he didn't have a prearranged way of communicating, so he decided to dramatically act out the event that occurred earlier today, that he wanted to tell the class about. His over-the-top reenactment of Kirishima managing to get his hand stuck in the dirt after tripping had everyone stifling their laughter. As soon as Kaminari returned to his food, Sero took the floor. He reenacted when Kaminari sneezed the day before, blowing every light bulb around. After Sero ran up to every light bulb in the room and mimed an explosion, there was no hope of holding back their laughter. Once the laughter started, there was no stopping it. Person after person went up and reenacted something that someone else in their class had done in the past week. Mina reenacted when Uraraka had accidentally floated herself and the couch when she took a nap. Yaoyorozu reenacted when Jiro got her jack stuck in the wall. Ida even joined in once when he realized that everyone was laughing at the dramatic reenactments, not necessarily the events, so no one was upset by it. He ended up acting out when Izuku casually lifted the couch over his head to vacuum underneath. The laughter tripled when Katsuki went up and reenacted when Sero got his elbows stuck together. No one expected him to ever join in. The original plan for the evening was forgotten, but they were having the most fun they'd had since the assignment was ever announced. They were all laughing together for the first time in over a week. Unfortunately, though, it couldn't last forever. Slowly, they ran out of things to act out, and they all separated into their partners to practice one last time before they had the actual assignment. Izuku went off to his room, expecting to spend his evening getting ahead on some homework or watching movies. However, once he managed to get comfortable in his bed, someone knocked on his door. A smile spread on his face because it was a very distinctive knock. It was actually the first code that he and Katsuki ever came up with. It was a simple code that just meant hello, but it indicated that Katsuki was there. Izuku couldn't get over how often Katsuki had been willing to hang out with him all week, and that Katsuki was usually the one to initiate it. But he recognized that it was partially because neither of them had ever had anyone else to hang out with. Izuku was starting to dread when the assignment was over, and they were no longer always free, but for now, he was overjoyed to spend any time with him. "Nerd, are you going to answer your damn door?" Katsuki knocked on the door again. Izuku rushed to the door. "Sorry, Kachan, I had to untangle myself." He gestured to the mess of blankets on the bed. It wasn't entirely a lie. He had been tangled in the blankets, but he wouldn't have had to get out of his fast if he hadn't been too busy thinking about how great it's been spending time with Katsuki. Izuku ushered him inside. He wasn't sure what their classmates' reactions would be to them actually being friends, but he didn't feel like finding out now. Katsuki sat on the bed while looking around the room. "Huh, I should have known your room would be a goddamn shrine." In the past week, they hadn't actually spent a lot of time together in the dorm, so Katsuki had yet to see Izuku's room. "Don't act like you don't own as much All Might memorabilia as I do, Kachan. I was with you when you got most of it." "Yeah, but I keep it under my bed like a normal person, not out staring at me. It's fucking creepy." "If you just came here to insult my decor, you can leave." Katsuki sighed. "No, I figured that if everyone else was studying with their partner, we should too." "Kachan, we've been doing this for years. We spent yesterday reviewing Morse code and different variations of sign languages to be able to figure out other people's messages. What else could we possibly do to prepare?" "Nothing. That's why I figured we'd study something else." "Fine. What are we studying?" "The newest All Might movie." Katsuki grinned as he gestured to the laptop and the movie he had under his arm. That Izuku had somehow failed to notice. "What? But don't you usually go to bed soon?" "Yeah, so we better fucking start it right now." Okay, move over." The movie was good. Izuku had seen it before, but it didn't really hold his attention this time around. He was too busy enjoying the fact that for the first time in years, they were actually really acting like friends. Unfortunately, the movie didn't last forever, and Katsuki left as soon as it ended, while Izuku stayed up. He wasn't doing anything. He was actually trying to sleep, but he kept going over all the time he'd spent with Katsuki over the last week. Finally, in the early hours of the morning, he fell asleep with a smile on his face. All right, everyone, this concludes Chapter 3 of Hidden Messages. Chapter 4 will be next, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.